welcome back to the UnDieted Podcast with your host, Melissa.
And Rebecca.
We are so excited. This is episode 10, and today we are diving into when it is not the food. So we are often taught to blame food thanks to diet culture. We blame the carbs, we blame the fruit, we blame all kind of stuff that have nothing to do really with weight loss. So today we are going to discuss when it is not the food.
And Melissa, this is something I often see in my practice, unfortunately, that when people come in and they talk to me about this problem with overeating, unfortunately, we kind of narrow it down and we see that it's definitely not the food, right? And I think that's where today we will touch upon a few issues that do occur with mental health. If this is triggering for you, obviously you can skip this episode. But if you want to learn more than happy to discuss some resources today so that you can further explore yourself and, find what may be causing the overeating problem or lack of eating, depending on the person's struggles.
And that's why we should probably have a full episode on weight loss injections to talk more about it. But that's why that is another band-aid solution. And a lot of people go in that direction out of desperation. They say,
Yes.
well, I just can't stop eating. I can't stop snacking. But we need to find why. What is your problem? And how do we solve this behavior? Because when you take anything, so in my time when I lost my first 50 pounds, I was taking a diet pill called Hydroxycut. At the time, it was one of its first versions, which was very, very strong. In my opinion, being where I am now, I don't think it should have been on the shelves for anyone to buy. It literally removed my appetite. Even if I wanted to eat, I could not eat. So same thing like the weight loss shots, it is taking your appetite away. You are eating less. Your calories are decreasing very fast. So you go from overeating one day to slowly a few days after eating very little, which causes a lot of side effects, but you're not dealing with why you had this relationship with food in the first place, which means when you come off, just like when I came off, I gained all the weight back, you're going to start gaining weight and you can't stay on a medication like that forever. I don't know if everyone's aware, but there are side effects that you probably don't want to deal with. And that's where I'll stop at that for this episode.
And I think that's where, if we consider that, yo-yo dieting and, taking these like weight loss pills, some professionals do consider that to be like a form of an addiction, right? Because it's not the thing that is causing so it's not the actual diet pills that is the addiction. It's the addiction of wanting to seek that excitement that, oh, this might actually help me. Seeking that excitement does cause the dopamine response to occur in the brain. And the dopamine response is the reward system, right? So the person might kind of chase that thrill of, hey, things will change for me. Like maybe I'll have a different experience. But at the same time, chasing that thrill does not, create healthy things for us. It only deters us and it also causes us to avoid the real problem at hand, right? Which, so this is where I expand on, talking about why it is that people, may find that it is almost an automatic behavior and obsession to go through all this. And for some people, it's from early experiences of being exposed to it by a parent that these diets, they're exciting, they're new, like let's try it together. And then from there, people feel like they have learned behavior from those parents. And unfortunately, that also creates a lot of trauma for people, right? That their parent figure may have wanted them to change at such an early age when that poor person just was going through puberty, they just a kid, right? A common narrative I hear from a lot of clients is that they talk about how, mom and dad would either force them to go on a diet and they weren't allowed to, be a kid. They were forced to be an adult at such an early age, right? And have to focus on their body at such an early age when they were already at an awkward stage. They could have been just beginning puberty and trying to discover themselves. right?
It's tough with kids because I have people that I know that have children that they would like them to lose weight. And it's such a touchy subject. They ask my opinion, and it's hard because I was that kid that was taken to Dr. Bernstein, that was
Uh,
taken to Weight
Doctor,
Watchers. And
yeah,
when I was taken to Weight Watchers, my mom was joining with me, kind of like we're doing this together, but my mom didn't qualify because she was at a healthy weight. So it is really hard. I've had comments where I grabbed another cookie and it's like, you don't need another cookie. And
mm,
so it's with children, it's hard. I think teaching them healthy habits is really important, and that starts with the parents. I try to watch my language and I express to my kids, you eat when you're and until you're full, like you don't push past. I never force my kids to finish their plate. If I'm just an adult and I can assess if I see that I don't feel like they ate enough, I leave it
yeah,
aside. And if they're like rummaging in the pantry after, I say, no, 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 you got to finish this first before you go in there. But I think the finishing your plate that parents do to kids, and it's like natural, it it causes something to make us believe without knowing that you always have to finish your food, and many portions,
yes.
especially in restaurants or what have you, are too large.
And unfortunately, with the classic parenting like line is you have to finish your plate, like you have to finish everything on your plate. Unfortunately, that does create disordered eating, later on in life, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, like a lot of, well, fortunately, actually, a lot of parents want to navigate away from that. Like it's now becoming a conversation piece with a lot of parents that
Yeah.
they want to make sure that their kids don't feel pressure of eating everything on the plate. That if they're not hungry, they're not hungry, right? That they're listening to their body.
Yeah, I've even had dinner time where one of my sons is like, I'm not hungry. Okay. But when you are after you have to eat dinner, you don't eat, I don't know, whatever it is you want from the pantry.
Yeah, no, for sure. So if I could like even summarize, when I see people in my chair and I talk to them about disordered eating, the three things that come up is like previous trauma, over a sense of guilt for wanting to do what they want to do,
Hmm.
and low self-esteem, right? Because all these things have occurred at an early age, and it sponges, it takes in, they can't divide themselves away from that past experience,
Yeah.
you know?
And
And yeah. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that with the dinner, sometimes even myself, there are days where you're not going to be hungry. I've gone days where I haven't had dinner because I wasn't hungry. And I don't know if Rebecca, you share the same opinion. I mean, you can agree or disagree, but I this breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner, dessert kind of thing
Yeah,
that a lot of people have, and a lot of trainers out there train people like that. You got to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, two snacks in between. No, you don't. You
exactly.
have to eat when you're hungry and eat a
Yes.
nutritious meal. That is important. Whether you eat once a day or twice a day, you have to nourish yourself. But even this,
Yes.
you see, it's noon, it's lunchtime. Why does noon have to be lunchtime?
That's a great point because something that I've encountered in my practice that when I teach people this, they actually like a light bulb goes off in their head and they go, "Oh, I didn't realize this was a factor." Is that when we do grow up with someone forcing us to do diets or, we grew up in those households that are influencing us in what we can eat, what we can't eat, the one thing that disappears is hunger cues and fullness cues.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, for example, I'm thinking that when it comes down to it, um, when I when I work with people who are overeating, that's the first thing I teach them. I actually teach them like, I want you to retrain your body to know what it means to be full and hungry again. And for them, it's almost like a light bulb goes off in their head and they go, wow, you're right. I don't know what it means to be hungry or full. And I agree with you that noon doesn't have to be lunchtime, right? It could be any time where you actually do feel hungry and you may still feel full from breakfast, and that's okay as well.
Mm,
But retraining those feelings in the body is a part of working with trauma, and it's also part of working with avoidance, right? As a
right.
coping mechanism.
Yep.
Because think of it this way, you're growing up in a house where you're like, Mom, I'm hungry. And your mom says, no, you're not. So you're taught from an early age to numb those exact same feelings in the body.
Yeah.
And basically like retraining that.
That's why making sure that you're building nutritious plates helps you make it to the next meal. You know, if you find yourself thinking about food all day, needing to eat every hour, every 2 hours, it's really time to stop, evaluate, and audit your lifestyle. And with this audit comes honesty. You have to be honest. The transformations I see in my clients are when they become honest with themselves. I have a
Exactly.
very recent 30-pound transformation with a 51-year-old woman, and her journey wasn't linear. She lost 15 pounds and then she gained 7, and then she lost the 7, and now she's down 30 altogether. But what had happened in that peak is old habits were creeping back. And it's not that those things disappear. You just learn how to reframe, redirect. Those are words that we use. So do something else instead of your old habit. And it happens with me too. I posted a video maybe 4 days ago. I literally took my phone up to my room and I explained in the video that I'm craving chocolate. I'm having like this munchy type of feeling. And what I did, so I removed myself from the kitchen and I went upstairs to take a breath, do some relaxation exercises, and then also getting online and recording a video distracted me from it all. And then I went for a 10-minute walk and I came back and it was done. So
Hmm.
things happen in your life and in your day that cause minor stresses. We all get stressed out. Even when I'm working at my computer and I'm trying to finish the admin part of my business and I'm getting notifications and emails are coming in and all this stuff, these are all subconscious stresses, and it stresses me out just because something didn't upset me per se.
Yes.
Just dealing with life in general as a mom is
Yes.
stressful on its own. And the best thing you can do is learn to manage your stress. And it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to learn, you're going
Yes.
to have to make mistakes, and you do have to be mentored.
And you know what? I agree with that. And another thing too that I actually like mention to clients, especially the parent clients, is that overstimulation of your nervous system or overstimulation of your senses that comes with being a parent, that in itself can be a huge trigger for either overeating or even disordered eating, right?
Yep. And many of us moms now, especially with social media, we disassociate with the phone, with the scrolling. What comes
Yes.
after scrolling is stress eating after. And many go to work in an office, they come home, they have, a few young children. Look, young children are not quiet. They're kids. And sometimes they need you all at one time. I have 4 kids, and sometimes everybody needs something at one time. And that is really stressful to deal with. And especially when you don't have the tools on how to handle these kind of situations, we often lock ourselves in the pantry, eat a cookie, or go into another room, get on the social media. But what
Yes.
if we learned how to deep breathe? I have a breathing exercise that takes 2 minutes and it'll change. If you could just leave, you always have to leave the stressful situation and come back to it after.
And you
When
know what? Like, yeah, I agree with that. And in a way, like I always encourage people to sense in their body where it is that they feel overstimulated. When they feel like they want to dissociate, I go, okay, check in your body where that might be occurring right now, and then do opposite action for that, whatever that might look like, right?
Yeah. So
And yeah,
that's what we mean when we say it's not about the food. Food is being used as a coping mechanism, but it really isn't about the food. And things that are really going on is you're bored, you're stressed, you feel anxious, you're burnt out. Stress and burnout is extremely common in moms, whether you have one child or
yes.
whether you have 10. Just being a mom, being responsible for another human
Yeah.
is stressful.
And I
And
agree with that. And and also too that I would even say that workplaces don't even know how to deal with burnout too. So I would say like, that burnout can even come from your career.
yeah, I have a friend whom her job, I feel looking from the outside, demands too much. And I tell her all the time, you
Mm.
have to speak out, you know? A lot of times people are afraid to lose the job if they say something, but
Yes.
you can't be pushed to the edge, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah. So
And I was gonna say that in itself re-triggers a lot for people that they may think of a parent that used to bully them. They maybe think of a person that used to push them past their limits. And when we do have like a workplace that does trigger that, it brings us back to the past, right? And
mhm.
so when I educate people on trauma and what that does to the nervous system, we have to remember that our body is trying to cope with all that. And food looks like a really good distraction for that. Right? Or it looks like a good coping mechanism for that.
It often, not often, always only feels good while it's in the mouth. And then often comes guilt, shame, and
Shame.
then you're trapped in this cycle where you eat more. And then really you start bullying yourself by saying things like, I failed again. I can't control myself. I'm out of control. You start telling
Mhm.
yourself these things instead of stopping and being honest and saying, okay, this happened and I overate this. I'm going to try next time to deal with it a different way. So awareness is so powerful. Honesty, awareness, and change is not easy. Okay. I went through it. It's very hard. I've been watching clients over the last 9 years go through it. Some have a really, really hard time. And you know what? I've had a small, small, small percentage of women that can't. They can't. There's only so much I can do, right? And it's the same for you, Rebecca, when you have
Yeah.
people in therapy, there's only so much we can do. I can't take the weight off you. I can't fix the problem for you. I can help you fix it. I can support
Exactly.
you to fix it. I can teach you the tools you need to better yourself, feel better in your life, more confident. All of the things that you want, I can help you
Yes.
get what you want. But in the end of the day,
It has to be
you
the person. That has to be the maker of change. Unfortunately, like,
have.
that is where, like, I agree with all that because as much as, like, a therapist can provide tools on what to do, the person has to be the motivator of change themselves, right?
If you've ever been to physiotherapy, you go into your session, you get needled. If you get dry needled, that session alone, it helped. Then the physiotherapist talked to you. Okay, until the next time I see you, I need you to do these exercises. You have to do those now. You can't just show up the next time and feel like, okay, she's going to keep dry needling me or she's going to keep massaging me or whatever it is, and you're going to get better. You have to do the work in between.
Yeah. And the sad part is I've had clients that they show up, they think like I'm gonna wave a magic wand and it'll all be better. And I say, unfortunately not. It's a two-way street. You have to also
Same.
do the tools too, right?
Same.
And
Or they get frustrated when it's not happening right away. And
yeah,
there are so many things that you're creating, that you're advancing in, that will not show up on the scale. The scale will show up eventually, but there's a foundation. And when you want to permanently change your life, because if you're on a weight loss journey, whatever you do to lose the weight, you're going to have to do to maintain it. You're changing forever. So start from the bottom and build,
yes. Yes,
because
exactly.
diets, fad diets, weight loss injection shots, they're taking you from here. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see my illustration. And they're jumping you up to here. So verbally, they're taking you from step 1 and you're jumping to step 10. So what about the steps in between? You're skipping
Yes,
all of that.
exactly.
You're going to fall down. You're going to fall back down that staircase and end up at step 1 again, again, and again.
And again, it's very true. It's very true. And I think as a therapist, it makes me sad when I've worked with someone for so long, but then they're like, I'm just going to follow this bad diet, or I'm just going to take this medication to help me lose weight, or I'm going to do. And as a therapist, I go, "But I can't force someone to not choose what they need to do. But at the same time, I can only educate them that this is only going to avoid the problem further, right?
Yeah, there's too
So
much of, I'm only going to do this until. It doesn't exist. It's
it
not
doesn't
real.
exist. Yes.
You can't. You are changing forever. If where you are at is not healthy or you're not happy and you're craving change, you can't be that person anymore. You have
Yes.
to act, talk, and do how the person you want to be behaves. And you have to start that from the beginning. Dress like her, talk like her, learn the habits that she would.
Yeah. No,
Be the
exactly.
person you want to become. Practice from day one and one small thing at a time. If you work on one habit every 2 weeks, that's all you need to do. I have a client that she told me she's always failing, she's always failing, she's doing this, she's doing that. And the last program she went into, it was one of those where no carrots, no zucchini, no dairy, like
Oh my
unless you
God.
have an intolerance or you don't like a food or a food drains your energy, those are the three criterias where you avoid a food. So you're allergic to it, you don't like it, or it completely drains your energy. So I focus a lot on sometimes when I know that clients shouldn't eat a food anymore, it's not beneficial to them, it's not giving them any nutrients, it's just like a filler food. I
Yeah.
tell them to stop taking it. I get them to start focusing on how they felt after the meal. They
Yes.
end up deciding, I'm not going to have that anymore. And sometimes
Yes.
it's not always the processed foods. I've had clients who red meat has made them feel tired and not good. And so they've stopped eating that. You have to learn to pay attention to your body, and it's not going to happen overnight, but your body does have all the answers. It really does.
It really does. And by focusing on what our body is saying, what it's feeling, you're going against avoidance. You're trying to reactivate and put everything back online, right?
Yep. So this client that kept going back and forth, she said to me, Melissa, I've been watching on social media. When you say lose the weight for the last time, that's what I want. I don't want to think about my weight anymore. I don't want to lose 10 pounds and then gain 5 back or gain 10 and then lose it and back and forth, back and forth. So she's on her knees at this point, not literally, but
Yeah.
it's a figure of speech where she's like, just whatever you say, I'm going to listen. And I said, we're going to take this extremely slow. You are going to
Yeah.
build habits. Okay. So there's like a very small nutrition point of it. I don't even get to the magic plate yet. I do a different strategy. Right now, she's focusing on daily walks because she does have a desk job where she works 8 hours and she's at a computer. So that's a priority to get
Yeah.
moving. So we have some nutrition homework, but I'm not getting that's how slow I move with people because they'll never have to try to lose weight again. We are rebuilding your lifestyle from step one.
Yeah. No, that's
And
beautiful
yeah,
that you do
she's
that.
very happy. She's very happy with that. And what you were saying earlier about the reward effect. So, same
Yeah.
thing with people who get on, the shots or whatever. I lost 15 pounds. I feel great. Of course you did. But you could also have lost 15 pounds. The
Yeah.
way I call it is the natural way. I say often in my videos, and people get triggered, that natural weight loss is the only way because you do have to fix the problem.
Yeah, no, of course. It's funny because I go back to that reward system explanation because that in itself, like, unfortunately, is involved with people that do engage in those behaviors, right? A dopamine release is temporary and it feels good. And then afterward, that person is left with shame or guilt or feeling like absolute crap. And so, yeah, I agree with you on all this.
We're going to wrap up now with what you can do when you're things that you can start doing today when you're defaulting to food to stop the overconsumption, portion control more. And first is identifying, self-soothing alternatives. And
Yes.
this is going to be what's going to work for you. Just because I tell you to go into another room and do breathing exercises, maybe that's not going to work for you. Maybe for you, it could be journaling. Maybe it's expressing yourself will give you that release, that dopamine, and you'll forget about the food because you should only be eating when you're hungry to nourish yourself. So, going for a walk when you can, dancing it out. putting on a song you like and dancing it out. All these things take a few minutes. Many have told me, I'm in an office. I can't, jump around and do silly stuff. Go into a private room, which I'm sure you can find, and do the 5-5-7 breath. It's a 2-minute
Yeah.
breathing exercise. You will feel so much better. Sometimes releasing your whatever stressed you out. So say you got an email from your boss that's annoyed with you, or a colleague annoyed with you, breathe in and breathe out and literally imagine pushing them. You're releasing it out. You release it. And even if you have to talk to yourself a bit and let out what frustrated you about the scenario, you will feel a lot better. You have to remove yourself.
And I've even encouraged clients to just step out of the room, like leave for maybe 10 minutes, go take a breather.
Mhm.
Because in itself, we have to also question if there's people in our life that do trigger us and what we can do to counteract that when it does happen.
Yep. Yep. And when you journal, sometimes you can ask yourself, are you really hungry? What are you specifically hungry for? All those kind of things. Just get curious about yourself. And alternatively, you reach out for connection through therapy, through coaching, through community. You don't have to do things alone. You don't have to learn alone. And the big thing about social media is that anyone who triggers you, any account that triggers you, unfollow. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have to block them so that you don't see their content.
Yeah.
Anyone telling you to avoid an entire food group, avoid fruit, avoid this, run, block, unfollow is all trash, None of that's true.
Exactly.
And I've created a brand new 7 fat loss habit trackers. So it's a tracker that I put together with 7 habits that you can work at. You don't start all 7 in the first day. You focus on 2. And as some become new normals, you add another one and, you check mark when you've done it. So if you want that, you can find it on our resource page on the podcast website, or you can DM me on Instagram, Melissa Fit Coach, and I'll send that your way.
And another resource I'll include is that there is a um, tracker that we use for like managing if there's binges, right? Like, and if a binge occurs, how to stop it halfway or even like almost toward the end, by bringing back your body online, right?
Mm.
And one classic book that I would recommend is Overcoming Overeating by Dr. Fairburn. He's really good. I've used that book many times as resources for managing like overeating and managing, binging disorder. And when I recommend it to clients, they've also said that it's a really good resource for bringing them back to like, knowing that it's not about the food. It's literally about the response to stress and trauma and guilt and all these different emotions.
There's a lot of stuff we bury and
Yeah.
we never deal with, and it shows back up in our lives in different ways. Sometimes it's a relationship issue with your spouse, it could be in a
Yeah.
friendship, or um yeah, it shows back up for us. And what you mentioned about the binging, stopping at any point before it's done is going
Yes.
to be rewarding for you,
And
because
it's a success
yeah,
as
you
well.
showed some type of control. Even if it's near the very end, you didn't finish.
Yeah.
So next time, maybe you'll stop halfway. Maybe next time you'll stop before it starts, You have to be compassionate with yourself and give yourself the grace to learn, to make mistakes. You have to embrace mistakes and treat them as
Yes.
lessons. They're
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
failures. You are never failing in life. You are never failing in life.
I totally agree with that. Exactly. And treat it like it's a success. Because, you came back online. You were able to be like, oh, wait, what am I doing? I need to stop this. Right. Yeah. I agree with that.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
So I will add those books to the resource page also. And if there are any specific topics you want us to cover, there is a form on our website as well where you can submit requests and we will put those in our lineup of episode topics.
Sounds good. And
Yeah.
I thank everybody for listening today.
Yes. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.